Today, we're talking business culture. I'm interviewing Lauren Smith, who is an event planner based out of Toronto. She owns Modern Collective and runs Toronto Business Babes. Lauren coaches and helps entrepreneurs land brand deals and create unique and impactful experiences. Today, we're talking about the community feel as well as the culture around your business and how to scale and as well as how to grow that business from the ground up. So let's get started.
Good. Your apartment's looking good. I've been seeing all your videos on Instagram. It's all coming together.
It is, slowly but surely. It's quite hard, obviously, like in the middle of a pandemic to like furniture shop, and like if I could go to HomeSense, my condo would be done. But
basically, like, let's talk about corporate, like how you got into corporate, and then we can go from there, and just so we kind of have the whole package and know what's going on.
The whole picture. Okay, cool. So for me, it started, I went to school for events and marketing. I remember in high school, my dad was like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, I want you to have a backup business like degree or diploma or whatever the heck you get in college these days. He's like, but I want it to be business. And I was like, well, I want it to be fun. I'm not going to just like go and learn like economics and stuff like that. I need to always be having fun. And like, I'm just a creative type person. So I remember we were sitting at my desk and we were like going through colleges and seeing like what business programs were fun. We landed on the event. It was like a marketing program, and then you could specialize in either brand management or event management. And so I went the event route and went to school for it and hated it. I was like, I never want to do events ever again in my life. The teachers were terrible. The program was bad. And I was just like, this is not what I want to do. So at like 20, we graduated college when we were 20. And then I went and did like the promo. I don't know if you know, like the promo model life where you're like handing out the free deodorant at music festivals, and it's called experiential marketing. I did that for years and I loved it. I was just like traveling all over Ontario with my best friends. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I remember my dad said to me, like, when are you going to get a real job? And I was like, gutted. What do you mean a real job? Like, this is a real job. And he got sick very shortly after that. And I transitioned from like living the promo life to bartending and becoming a caregiver for my dad. And in the back of my head, I always remembered him saying, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get a real job? And I was just like, I wasn't ready at the time. And then my uncle flew in from Vancouver, and just like for family support, we went for a drink. We were just like having chats. And he's like, why don't you talk to our event planner, pick her brain if you want to pursue that route. She's the best person to talk to. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to have a conversation with anybody. Like, let's just see what happens. So I had a call with her, and she said, listen, we have an event coming up in, I think it was like that weekend or whatever. If you want to volunteer and like get your feet wet in the industry, like totally come see what happens and we can go from there. And so I was like, all right, that sounds good. And so I went. I remember driving up to Barrie. It was at the hockey, like the big hockey arena in Barrie.
Oh yeah.
It was a corporate event. I met Don Cherry. Don Cherry was like the spokesman for the company that she was working for. I met the owners of the company, and it was just like this, like, it was so much at once. And I was like, this is incredible. This is what I want to do. I love events. I always wanted to be an event planner. And I remember saying to them, I was going to fly myself out to Vancouver that weekend to volunteer at another event because I just wanted the experience. And I remember I had bought a new Jeep like 2 weeks prior, and I couldn't afford it. I was like a bartender, and I just couldn't afford to like pay the $600 ticket to go to Vancouver. And one of the owners said to me, well, if we pay for your flight, will you still come? And I was like, yes. Yes. I remember going back to my bartending job and saying, I need the week off. And the manager said to me, you're making the biggest mistake of your life by going on this trip. And I was like, what? Like, I don't understand what you mean. Anyways, I went, I loved it. I like completely became obsessed with the event planning industry, and they actually offered me a job. So I went from just like volunteering to being offered a coordinator level job. And then I stayed with that company for about 6 years. I worked my way up to the VP level, running their events and marketing department. And I just like, I freaking loved the industry. I loved what I was doing. I knew deep in my heart that events, travel, sponsorship was my like calling. It was the thing I was good at. It was the thing that I loved doing. It was the thing that people knew me for. But I hated the work environment. It was such a toxic, unhealthy, like just terrible. That boss that hired me like ended up leaving years prior. And it just was no longer in alignment with like what felt good for me. So I remember I left and it's just a very long story, but I ended up working for a bank through connections that I had in that industry. And I was at the bank for 5 months. And I remember being like, this is literally my dream, or not my dream, but like I was 26 when I got the job, their dream job. I was making like 150 grand a year, corner space, traveling, $1 million budgets, like literally everything that I wanted to do and that people thought was a dream I had. And I freaking hated it. I was still included in that same industry. So a lot of the toxicity and like hurt and drama was just like, I couldn't get away from it. Plus, I wasn't being creative. I was running the department. People were coming to me for questions and approvals, but I wasn't actually like coming up with concepts and like enjoying the event side of things. So I remember one day, I literally walked in and I quit. I had no backup plan. I had no savings. I had no idea what I was going to do next. I just knew I could no longer be there because it was just like draining my soul. And at the same time is when we launched Toronto Business Babes. So Toronto Business Babes, the first event was in March. I left in March. Wow. And it just like, it all kind of like happened at the same time. And then from there, it's just kind of been like a journey into entrepreneurship and figuring things out. But I loved corporate from a experience perspective. That power suit, like I still, if I walked down on Bay Street, I would still get the chills. Like you don't lose that side of you. I loved having my suits and my heels. And I thought that was such a big part of who I was going to be for the rest of my life. Looking back now, I'm like,
I think Bay Street does that to you, to be honest. Like I went to a FWE conference, which was like female women entrepreneur, and it was on Bay Street. And I remember I'm like, oh, I'm going to like plan my outfits. I was like, I'm going to wear heels. Like I used to do pageantry. So I was like, I'm going to like whip out the pageant girl style. I remember walking home. We had to walk from I could have taken a cab or Uber or whatever, but I was like country bumpkin, had never even downloaded like the Uber app. I was like terrified. I was so scared. Anyways, I was like, I'm just going to walk home. I'm in heels. It starts raining. I get back to the apartment and I had nude heels on and my feet were literally bleeding. I was like, okay, I know why these girls bring like flats or running shoes with them. I understand this.
Yeah. I remember that too. Because when I worked and lived out in Vancouver, I would drive to work. So like I would just wear heels into the office. And then when I lived in Toronto and worked downtown Toronto, I would walk to work. And the first day I remember wearing heels and it was like a decent walk. And I got to the office and I was like, this is terrible. I hate this. And then I saw everyone wearing like in the wintertime, like UGG boots or like something comfortable. And I was like, oh, I now get it. I now understand. And then you're part of a club. You're like, oh, what do your walking to work shoes look like? It was just like this weird psychological thing, but
it was just hilarious. And I also found too, like when you're talking about like your boss or someone telling you like, oh, a real job or you're not going to succeed at that or whatever, it's really hard not to take that personal, but sometimes turning it around into a different feel, like I'll show you, like let me prove to you, right?
Mm-hmm. You don't even know. I remember when I became an entrepreneur. So when I was in that industry, I'm not going to say I was like the golden child, but I had the fun job. So everyone, like if they wanted a party invite, they would call me, or if they wanted like something fun, like I never didn't get invited to a party. Like it was just the nature of the job, the nature of the industry, the nature of the role. And I'm just like a fun, bubbly, goofy person. So people always like, I don't know, wanted to be friends with me. But when I left, all of those friendships like no longer would pick up my call. They would no longer like, I just didn't exist to them. Until now, I'm starting to see the success and I'm getting the bigger events and I'm doing all this stuff that's like entrepreneur. Those people are now calling me. And I'm like, I literally had a call yesterday or an email yesterday come through and I just sat there and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, yes, like so proud of myself because for 2 years, I like didn't exist to people in that industry. And I know it's because people talked bad about me when I left and all that stuff, but I've for 2 years have worked so hard to be like, yeah, like game on. You want to play? Let's play. Like gloves off. I'm so ready to show you. Blah, blah. And it's actually funny, side note, someone from that industry I ran into at the grocery store last week. And he was like, oh, how are you doing? Like, how's the entrepreneur life going? And I was feeling so spicy that morning. And I was like, it's going super well. Like I make more in a month than I used to make in a year. And he was just like, what? And you know, like he's one of the talkers. He's the one that's like going to tell everybody. And so I said it on purpose. And he was like, you do? Good for you. That's incredible. And I was like, yeah, it's like life is going great. Life is so good. And now the chatter's starting, but I'm like,
well, okay. Entrepreneurship's funny. Like I was born, I think I have it in my blood. I really had no choice whether I tried to be an employee and I got fired from every job. So
Yeah.
I'm forced to be my own boss. And I come from like two, almost three generations of entrepreneurs now. And I look at how entrepreneurship used to not be cool. Like I look
Mhm.
at my grandfather, for example, like he was an entrepreneur and that was kind of something to look down on. Like if they didn't
Yeah.
have credentials to get a real job, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And and now people like what you were saying about being creative and having your outlook and your passion, like that's what I think of. Because when I worked at these other jobs, I was like, I can't have any input. I couldn't use my creative
Yeah.
like insight of things I wanted to do with the business or even my opinion. I couldn't even have an opinion about anything. So I think
Mhm.
that's another thing with like you have staff and I think that's something where I with my employees I try to get them involved so much and the
Yeah.
decisions we make, the creativity behind because you never know what talent you have in these employees. I don't think sometimes they know either.
Yeah. It's true. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always ask the girls, like, how are you? Like, how are you feeling? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling overworked? Because when I was an employee and I did feel overwhelmed, that's when I did my worst work. And that's when I would just like barely get by and I would just like put like my least amount of effort in. But if my boss had said to me, like, what can I take off your plate? How can I support you? Then the ideas would flourish and then I would love what I was doing. So I always try and like give them that space to be creative. The other thing too is if they ask me to like review something or if they lean on me for like, hey, can you help me write this template or can you do this? I always push back. I'm like, you try it first. Let me see. Like, and it's not because I'm being lazy, but like I don't want them to lean on me for everything. I want them to look up to me and to like have me guide them because I want them to flourish. And I don't think enough people think about that. They're like, no, you're working for my business. You have to do this. Like, I don't want you to be creative. It's my vision. I'm like, that's just not how the future of business is.
Absolutely. Like I think of I have some girls like I try to get girls right out of school because then I can like mold them and like really have because I mean everyone gets habits. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad from different workplaces or just from different industry standards. And as soon as I look into hiring someone, I'm like, okay, are they trainable? Are they moldable? Are they wanting to learn? Because I have an employee, for example, one of the girls that works for our lash supply company. She's literally the Jill of all trades because
Yeah.
she will, if she doesn't have an answer to something, she's going to find out. Like she's working, she has a business background and
Mhm.
aesthetics and lashes, but she's literally doing all our SEOs for our website. She's doing all this back end stuff and researching. And I'm like, girl, I didn't even know half this stuff existed, but she gets so involved and she treats that business as its own. And that's
Mhm.
just, I think as a boss too, that's what you look for. Like, what are your top things that you normally look for when you're hiring somebody?
Very similar to you. Like I want someone fresh out of school because in the event space, you can develop bad habits real quick and you can get an edge and you can get this chip on your shoulder if you're being mentored by the wrong person. So I mean all of the girls on my team, I think there's one that's like a year younger than me. The rest of them I think are under 25, which I love because I remember being in my early 20s and just feeling so excited about work and wanting to learn from someone and pick up all the good habits, and it also makes me accountable. Like if I'm not showing up as my best self, like are they going to think that that's okay? And like, are they going to mold that? Like, I don't know. It's hard. I also, being in the event space, we travel a lot and we're together a lot. Late nights, we're talking all the time. It's a very untraditional industry. So I make sure that when I'm hiring someone, that it's someone with a positive attitude and someone that I actually genuinely could like go on a week's vacation with. And not because I'm looking for more friends, because I mean we're always looking for friends, but at the same time you need to know that this person is going to handle situations in a similar capacity to you. Like I am the type of event planner where if something happens I laugh. I'm like, well, okay, let's figure it out. Like I don't scream, I don't panic, I don't start yelling and pointing fingers at people. I'm like, well, let's just figure this out. Like we can do it with a smile on our face. And I want people that have that same mentality and are just looking to learn the techniques from me, not someone who's going to like come in and be like that angry person that no one wants to work with.
Absolutely.
Um, I think skills 100% can be taught. It's attitude and mindset for me that is like tenfold.
I feel like you're either born with it or you're not. Like I've tried, like I've had girls with amazing skills, and then it's like okay, your personality, like you're the bad apple of the group and we got to get rid of you kind of thing. And it's hard, like hiring and firing. And like, I don't know about you, like, have you had employees that are older than you as well, or mostly always younger?
So when I worked corporate, I did. When I worked corporate on multiple occasions, I would manage people like my mom's age or like 5 or 10 years older than me. So they thought like, I don't know about you, but like I find women corporately in their 30s, and this is like a very blanket statement. I don't think every woman is like that, but they feel like they have something to prove. So
Yes.
I remember having one woman that I managed, and I was just like, I can't do this. Like that day, I vowed to never hire someone that's older than me for multiple reasons. A lot of people had warned me against it. They're like, they need to be younger. They need to look up to you, blah, blah. And I was like, you don't need to do any of that stuff. Like, this person's a good person. And they just weren't, like, not at all. So no, all my employees are younger than me. I've had a couple women work that are like the same age as me. And I find they're focusing on building their careers, and I was like a side hustle. Whereas the girls that are younger than me, they're like super focused on our business, and they're like, I want to be with you long term. I want to grow to full time. Like this is a focus of mine. Whether they're like bartending or they have like a smaller side hustle on the side, I find when they're younger, they're hungrier to learn from you and to grow within your business.
Absolutely. Like it was funny when I had my first like full staff, I think there was about 7 of us, I guess, and I was pretty much in the middle with age. And I completely get what you're saying, because I think a lot of it was in my head too, of saying like, oh, I'm younger, like they have more experience in the field, but then it's like, but I'm still paying the paychecks for these people too. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm still the boss. Like you need to listen to me, but it's also hard to have those hard conversations of like, no, you need to like you need to think of me as your boss. Even though I've had those conversations with my staff before, saying like, you guys need to remember, like we're all friends here, but I'm also your boss of making those decisions, and this is what we're doing, right?
Yeah. I feel super fortunate. I feel very friendly, and like the girls on my team are like friends of mine. Like we all love The Office. So we were like literally last night we're joking and sending memes back and forth. But at the same time, we can almost switch it on and off. And we can be like, okay, we're laughing about this, but like I have a work thing I need to talk to you about. And I notice they always come to me, and I love it so much. Like if they're feeling anxious or if they're feeling like they need to talk it through, I love that they come to me. I don't want them to like go to each other and be like, oh, it's so stressful, and then feed off each other. And then you just have this like crazy work environment of like this little stress has spiraled into like your whole staff leaving. I never want that. I literally, yeah, it
Well,
makes so much more sense.
and also from like, I think of your experiences. I think when you become an entrepreneur or when you're wanting to be a boss, you normally have a lot of experiences from other fields, and you figure out what you don't want in your work environment. I remember the last job that I got fired from. It sounds so bad saying this out loud, but the last job I got fired from, I remember saying like, these are the things I've learned so much from that opportunity, because these are things I don't want to be. These are the things I don't want in my business. And even to your point of being able to like, we have assessments we do with our girls. So every 6 months we do an assessment, and it's, well, technically I feel like we technically touch in more often, but we actually have a formal assessment every 6 months. And that's where like things might come out that they've been wanting to talk to me about, or they don't know how to put it into words, or they had another job opportunity, or they're wanting more responsibilities. And I think when you can openly have those conversations and know like this is a safe place, it's amazing the productivity that they can do. They feel more passionate. They're feeling like you're really appreciating what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our business has grown substantially in the last 6 months. And I remember in the fall, we were a small team. There was like me, our marketing girl, and like my right hand, and that was kind of it. We had a sales girl, we were like kind of dabbling, and we had like an operations girl, but we weren't like a full team. Like I think it was all me. I was like too scared to like commit to like actually giving people roles, and I was like, well, this is the task I need help with, and it just like it didn't work. And I remember one day I had to say to the girl, like, I need you to tell me what you cannot take on anymore, because I'm a pusher, and not in a bad way, but like I can do so much at once. I feel like everyone can, and it's just not the case. And I remember her and I sitting down and very clearly being like, this is not something I can take on, or this, I'm over capacity, or I need to focus on this. And I think for her, it was probably a very scary conversation. But for me, it was like, I really loved hearing that. And I really needed to hear that as a business owner so that I can put things into place to make us successful. Sorry. and not burn out. I don't ever want to be the reason that one of my staff burns out. I say to them all the time, and this is probably like people, I've actually had people say, what are you doing? Like, why are you giving your staff so much authority in your business? I'm like, well, because they run the business. They run the day to day. Like, I can bring on a client, I can like make the sale, but they're the one executing on it. Like, if I don't give them what they want and what they need, I'm a terrible boss. Like, you need to hear your employees out. But I've had employees say to me, like, this is a part of the job that I hate and I just don't love doing it, and it feels icky, and I literally hire someone to fill it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so many people are like, why the hell do you do that? I'm like, why would I not want my employee to enjoy their job? Like, where did this mentality come from of like, you have to do everything on your like check mark and you have to love it all? Like, no, you don't.
And I think too, I think of back to traditional bosses. You think of movies and the corporate world and all those different things. And I look at like with my girls, same thing. Like I give them, I wouldn't call it freedom, but I do give them a lot of sense of like what they want to do in the business or their ideas. Like we do a lot of like brainstorming calls, and there's things I'm like, our business wouldn't be where it's at if it wasn't for those girls. And I'm just the person, like I'm just there. Sometimes they're running it, and I'm like, okay, guys, what do you want me to do? But I also think that even like, especially from what you're just saying, like I feel like that's a good leader, and they're wanting to come to work because of that, right? They're not feeling like they're just another number, they're going to be replaced the next day, because I think that's a huge thing that people think in the corporate world, and it could be the case, right?
Yeah. One of our girls just gave birth last week, and she said to me, she's like, I never thought I would feel excited to come back to work. And for me, I was just like, I want to cry. The fact that we've like cultivated this environment and we've given you this opportunity. And she's not full-time, she's a contract worker. But I've always said to her, your job is so secure here. Like, go have a baby if you want to take 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever you need. Like, you call me when you're ready to come back. And for her to say that to me of like, I cannot wait to come back, like that for me, I was like, oh, we're doing something right. Something makes sense.
Yeah.
Another one of our girls is taking a step back to deal with some personal health issues. And the same thing, I said, like, hey, when you are ready to come back, we will find the hours for you. We will figure it out. Like, I don't want you going anywhere. And she's said multiple times, like, I've never had someone that actually cares about me. And I'm like, that makes me sad. Like, I love that I can give you that and I can be that environment, but like, why is that the bare minimum? Why are people like shocked to think, oh my God, my boss cares about me? And I also hate the word boss. Like, I'd say, don't ever call me your boss. Like,
yes,
not at all. But
we joke and say like boss lady. That's our like, that's what we joke around about. And I think too, we call each other work wives. I know that's like a term I read a lot in a lot of entrepreneur books and stuff like that. But I think that's what it becomes, is it's a relationship. Yes, it's a work relationship, air quotes, but it's more than that. You're spending more time with that person than you are with your significant other or your family.
Yeah. I genuinely care so much about the girls that work with me that if one of them leaves or like ever left, I would be gutted. I would be like, well, what did I do? Like, I would take it personally. And I know it's not a personal thing, but I like, in looking at my business plans for the year, I have plans that are like employee recognition, like rewards trips, because I think I obviously know I'm in the incentive industry, how valuable that is for your business. But I also just like cannot wait to go away for a week with the girls. And like, I also ask them to, here's another thing that I don't know if you do in your business, but my employees, partners also mean a lot to me, because at the end of the day, that's who they lean on for support. So I know every single one of my employees, I know their boyfriend's or their fiance's birthday, and they get something from me on their birthday. And I remember we just went out and they were like, what? Why did you just send my boyfriend like a Starbucks gift card? I'm like, why wouldn't I? Like, he's your biggest cheerleader. He's the one cheering you on. So if you're ever venting about work, like, I want him to know that I'm a good person, and I want them to like be that support. The spouse plays so much of an important role in their life. If you're not focusing on that spouse's involvement, I think that we're missing like the boat completely.
I love that. We do. So we couldn't do it this year, obviously, because of COVID, but we usually go to the JW Marriott here in Muskoka, and we do the Children's Foundation Gala. So it's great because we're giving to a charity. We spend, the girls, we get all ready, like it's a very gala event. We get all done to the nines, and then I treat them every year to a night with their spouse and their partner at the JW Marriott. It kind of depends on the situation of what's kind of going on, or if everyone can make it, but I put it out there, the invites there, because probably one of the nicest hotels in all of Muskoka. And it's just like a great getaway weekend. It's lovely. And that's something that I know. And I give them the option too. I'm like, is this something you would want to do? Or do you guys want to do something different? Or would you rather? But I agree with you. The spouses, like, and you know too, like, I feel like I can read my girls' energies as soon as they come into the door. And I always say there's like that magic line when they enter the spa. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, they don't even have to open their mouth or even look at me. I just know. I'm like, okay, did something happen? Or is there something we need to talk about? Or you just tell me when you're ready. I'm here, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of our staff are like super new, so I'm still getting to know them and like learning their spouse's name and what they do for a living and stuff. But one of the girls, her partner just got a new job. And I remember I was one of the first people she texted. And I was like, I freaking love that you want to text me and celebrate his success with me. That is what it should be. Like, gone are the days when you leave that office door at 5 o'clock and that relationship ends. Like, no, we are family. Like, I tell my staff I love them because I genuinely do. And I don't want to have a business that's not like that, even if I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's not wrong for me. It works for me. They pour their heart and soul into my clients just like I do. And that's what it's all about.
Well, and I think too, like, I look back at when we had a very crazy 2020, and I was listening to one of your, I think it was, I don't know if it was your IGTV or if it was a podcast you did talking about your trip that you got to go on in 2020. And I think back to like what was normal life. And
Yeah.
just talk about how like now you have started that new business for 2020 within travel, and how you've kind of had to pivot and change that.
Okay, this is a loaded question. So 2020 started off in Bali, and it was incredible. We were running a retreat for one of our clients. It was like the dream, like private chef, private villa. I was like, I have made it. This is incredible. And then in Bali, one of the girls' boyfriend texted her and he was like, there's this weird virus going around. Just like, make sure you get home safe. Maybe wear a mask when you fly home. And we were like, it's fine. Like, we're going to be good. And then we get to Hong Kong and everyone's wearing a mask. And we were like, oh, okay. Like, this is a little bit terrifying. But in Bali, we had like kind of mapped out plans for 2020. And I'd always wanted to become a travel agent. In the event and travel industry, there's like a couple different workarounds to like how you can still support people without being a travel agent. But I am like super above board with everything I do. So I was like, I need to become a travel agent. I was going through my notebook from 2014 and it had get TICO certified. Like way back, what is that, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago now?
Wow.
So it had always been on my dream. And then I came home from Bali, and a couple weeks later, I flew to California to see my uncle. He's very big in the like personal development, mindset, like neuroscience world. And I was like, I'm just craving that in my life. I needed the beach. I just needed like a kick in the ass. So I flew to California and I asked him the hard questions. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to show up and sell, or how I'm going to like show up as a good boss, because I just hired my first employee last February. So it's only been a year.
That's great. Yeah. And then you're accountable for other people too, right?
During a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I remember we pivoted a little bit and I had hired Nicole and I was like, I don't have any work for you. If you want to stick, like, come along the road with me, like we can do Pinterest marketing, we can figure it all out, blah, blah, blah. But this travel agency certification had always been on my radar. And I remember saying to a couple people, I'm going to get travel agency certified. They're like, in the middle of a pandemic, like, are you crazy? And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I do it now? When the pandemic ends, because it's going to end. If we look at historical, what is the word?
20s.
Yeah, exactly. Travel's coming back. And I remember even speaking to like the agency that I was like getting certified under, he was like, so few people right now are actually getting certified. It's actually people are leaving the industry. And I was like, that's because those people don't have like foresight. They're looking at like their next 6 months, their next 12 months. And I get it if they need to make a living 100%, but I see this like very long term. So when travel does come back, we are going to be that hub of what people are looking for. People are now going to trust travel agents so much more than they're going to trust Expedia. Like, you need to start thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
So we did it. We like, when I say we, I mean I ripped the Band-Aid off, did the test, got the certification, paid the money, and we are a fully licensed travel agency, literally laying dormant right now. Like, we're not doing anything. We don't even have our website launched. We've got an Instagram page, but that's about it. But we're doing all the behind the scenes work now. So in 6 months, 12 months, when travel does perk back up, we're going to be that go-to.
yeah, you're ready. And I think that takes courage, right? To see like, you know what, I'm going to utilize this time. I'm going to dial in of what need like the work that needs to go into this. And then yeah, once things open up, you're going to be laughing now that you've put all that time and effort into it and done all the back end. And then you're going
Mhm.
to be able to travel and enjoy it as well, right?
Exactly. It is funny though. Like I remember I used to think about getting travel or agency certified just as an agent. And now I'm like, that opens up a whole other business for me. Like I can become a full agency. I can have agents under me. I've even offered it to my team. I'm like, if you guys want to like get your test and just like hang your license under me, that's totally fine. And everyone is like, I want to do it. And I was like, oh, did I just like inadvertently grow another business? Like I think I need a minute. But it is cool to be able to, as an entrepreneur, see how can I grow that side and how can I become this like hub and this agency that I did never think I could grow. So it is interesting to like run with an idea and see how you can build it into a business in the middle of a pandemic in an industry that is completely like dead right now. So it's taken some courage, some definitely future planning, and understanding and patience that it's not going to happen right now has been a challenge.
I like completely relate to you on a product line level because we can't lash or do anything right now. And same with all the other provinces. We do ship worldwide, but like everywhere is affected differently. And we're paying like a ridiculous amount in product right now, but I'm like, we're going to need it because I know when the first wave came, I didn't have enough inventory because everyone went like lash crazy and needed all these supplies. So for me, I'm like, hey, let's do all this back end stuff. Let's get our online learning going. Let's get student kits. Let's try to get all of this done. So then when the big bang comes, basically, that we can start back at work, that we're good to go. Because you're just running on fumes at that point.
Yeah. There's been a couple days where I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I genuinely, like, what am I doing? And then one thing happens and then it just makes sense. And you're like, okay, because when this pandemic is over, watch out. I'm coming for you. Like, game on. And I don't think enough people about that. They're like, I need to like survive now, which 100% you need to. But you also need to think about what does your future look like and how are you going to pivot through a global pandemic.
So what is something you like tell yourself like why you're doing what you're doing? Like what is something that really like internally drives you?
In terms of like the future planning travel agency side of things or just in
Like
general?
yeah, just kind of like that satisfying feel of like you're making a difference, like how like you're obviously your team, you're being accountable for them, but something that's like you have to remind yourself like this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah, I feel like I don't really have those days that are hard to get out of bed. I mean, from a personal level, sure, there's stuff that goes on in your life, but I'm just so obsessed with what I do and so obsessed with helping people. And for me, I know the event industry, I mean, our business does so much, but speaking from the event side of things, they are so scary. And if you don't know events, they terrify you and you don't see the bigger picture. You don't see how you can be profitable and you don't see how you can bring this massive idea that's like floating around in your head or scribbled on a notepad to life. And that's what we're good at. I love taking these big vision ideas and bringing them to life and showing them it's actually not that hard. Here's how you structure it. Here's your pricing model. Here's everything that you need to focus on. And people really, they've never had that before. Like I noticed with a lot of other event planners, they're like, yes, I will logistically bring your event to life. For us, it's I will actually like come up with the entire concept. I will help you with your ticket pricing, your sponsorship, bringing it to life. I will show up the day of and I will be that like goofy person. I literally twerked on camera last week during an event because the vibe needed to be there. Like we go that extra mile. And it's not because I'm like doing it from like a shady perspective. It's just what we love to do. And so there's never days where I'm like reminding myself, like, you got to get out of bed because you have a team. It's like, what are we working on today? Like, how can I refine the business? What structures can we put into place? How can I support my team? There's like never any like internal dialogue of like, do I want to do this anymore? Like, granted, there have been days where I'm like, I don't think I want to go this way anymore. I don't want to like see my business growing in this perspective. There's been terrible clients where I'm like, I don't even want to manage a client at all. But obviously that's not ever going to happen. We love what we do so much. I love showing up and being the best version of myself that it just kind of comes naturally. Like I find ways to pivot and ways to like improve, but there's never like I want to quit. It hasn't happened yet. There hasn't been a day where I wake up, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, something that I admire that you've been saying too is like it's okay to change. It's okay to pivot. Like even, okay, I'm going to be a travel agency. Like that's amazing. And I feel like that's why you get so excited about what you're doing, because you're revolving and you're changing it and really tweaking it to how you see it, right? And what works.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, there might have been a holy shit moment. I hope I can swear. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I think everyone can relate to that.
Yeah. I was just like, okay, well, I think I need to get my resume ready. And I remember just thinking like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to pull out every stop that I have, every talent that I have, and see where I can go with this. And I also am very multifaceted. Like you will never see my business be one stream. Like I either have multiple courses, or I'm doing one-on-one coaching, or I'm doing one-on-one planning, or I'm opening a travel agency, or we're now a PR agency. Like that's just who I am. Like at the core of who I am, I'm a Leo, I'm an Enneagram 7, I'm always on the go. And my business relates to that. I have people in my business that only focus on events. And then I have people that only focus on brand partnerships. And I love it. I love that every day is completely different for me. I think we get stuck in our own head that I went to school for this, so this is what I need to do for the rest of my life. And I just don't think that's the case.
Oh, 100%. Like I think my team like love and hate me at the same time, because I'm like, oh, I came up with this idea, or oh, why don't we do this? And even this podcast video thing, I'm like, thank God I just hired a new, like basically she's doing all of our like tech social media stuff, and she's like, oh yeah, I can edit videos and do all this. I'm like, thank God, because I just learned how to do Zoom pretty well, so this is all new to me. That was trying to come up with like kind of like questions and topics to touch with you, was like there was so many different like ways to chat too, because even like what you were saying about social media, and like I'm loving your IG stories talking about sponsorships and like the different pillars it takes to really do like paid ads and things like that. Like do you want to chat a little bit about that aspect of your business as well?
Yeah. So we had always done that with our retreat clients. So we would take them, I mean, sponsorships is a huge part of events, and it's like how you raise funds to actually make the events happen. If people want to talk about profitability for events, it typically comes from the sponsorship and your ticket pricing model, and there's just so much behind it. So from an event perspective, we've always done that. That's always been something that's included in our services. It's actually my favorite part of the whole event process, is like getting in the budget. It sounds super dorky, but like seeing how we can like increase sponsorship and decrease ticket prices to make it more accessible, and like just having fun with it. And then when the pandemic hit, one of my clients was like, hey, why don't you try just like pitching me for podcasts? And like, you did it before for sponsorship, so why not just try? And I was like, all right, sure, why not? And then it built up into this, like we now have 20 one-on-one clients. Some clients we just pitch sponsors, some we just do podcasts, some we do the whole thing, some we're working on like a roadshow campaign, and then also doing their new home build. So it's kind of cool to see like where we can go with the partnership side of things. We are not an influencer agency though. This is the one thing that people are always like, I'm an influencer, will you represent me? And I'm like, no, because your focus is on the wrong thing. We work more with business owners in bringing partnerships into their business. Mm-hmm. So it has been really cool to like pivot and say like, what courses are you launching? When are you launching? What is the messaging that you want to share? Do you have a giveaway coming up? Or are you just looking for like that paid post? And 90% of the time, if an quote unquote influencer who's just looking for like brand partnership after brand partnership comes to us, we turn it down because our focus is more on like the business side of things. And I don't know many other agencies doing that right now. So it's been really cool to talk about it. And like my DMs explode every time I'm like, I do an IG live, or when we just launched our new course yesterday, or not new course, but opened up enrollment into our course. And it's been really cool to see the conversation and people being like, I didn't ever think this was for me, but now I realize it totally is.
Well, and I love and admire that you're okay with saying no. Like with the whole influencer market, that's a whole other like whole other thing to deal with, and on top of like dealing with businesses, because it's so different. Like I personally don't know a lot about it, but I can just imagine like it being two totally different, like everything about it in a way.
Everything.
But also I didn't even think of like being a business owner myself, thinking of like paid ads and sponsorships and all that stuff in like a digital kind of way too. Like I remember listening to your IGTVs, and I was like, I never thought of it that way. Or you really put it into a different perspective. And I love how you break it down into like 3 pillars or 4 different points, and then you summarize it all in the end. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this all makes sense. It just like you get that click moment where you're like, oh, I get this.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had so many people come to me and be like, I implemented one of the things that you said, or I like overhauled my whole strategy based on one IGTV and I've seen this growth or this success. And for me, that's just like mind blowing. And I'm like, yay. Like I actually get so happy because like it's similar to events. People don't see it for them, even though it is for everybody. And I think the quote unquote influencer market has made it feel like an exclusive club that you can't be a part of. And I'm like, you can sit with us. Like, no, this, everyone can do this. And it's been really cool to kind of see how people like adapt it into their business, and different businesses too that I see, like we'll have like, I don't know, like a baby product company focusing on brand partnerships, and then we have like a marketing agency that's also focusing on them, and then a business coach. And it's just like really cool to see how your strategy and your different like teachings can be implemented to so many different businesses. I just love it.
I even got that vibe like at the event I went to in Toronto with the Boss Babe. It was like I just sat with like random people. I went there solo, and just a community. Like we all were in totally different industries, totally different experience levels, and like it was such a safe environment. Like I just felt so safe and secure, and like I felt open to talk about things that I probably wouldn't talk about with my friends who aren't entrepreneurs. And it really kind of dialed in and made you feel good. And even some of my friends who wanted to come to the event, they were like, can I go even if I'm not an entrepreneur? I'm like, yeah, like it's open to everyone. It's so neat. And one of the girls sitting beside me, she was in a corporate job, and she was like, I'm thinking about leaving to start this like to do baking and like cakes and all this stuff. And I was like, well, you came to the right place, because I'm like, talk to me after they're done speaking and tell me if you're going to do it or not. And right away after I look at her, she's like, I'm going to do it.
Did she do it?
It's funny, I have her on Instagram, and it looks like she has. So I'm like, even with the pandemic, it looks like she's like making it work. So I think there's so many things that like I was so looking forward to talking with you, because there's so many different things that you bring on so many different levels. And even personally, I know Nicole too, just like one of your employees, and she is just like, so when she talks about work, she just lights up. Like she came into the spa this summer, and like she hadn't been with you that long really, because she started in February, and she was just like, so I could just see the light, how like excited she was and how passionate she was for what she was doing. But she kept talking about you as a boss. And I think that's where, as business owners, it is hard. Like I've lost employees for multiple different reasons, and it is hard because you take it on yourself of like, what did I do wrong, or is it me? But really you have to look back, and like we left jobs for certain reasons, and it might have been the boss, or it might have been situational, or we might have just wanted to go into our next journey. And I just think like just sitting down and chatting with you today, like there was so many things we covered. And another question like I want to touch base on too is like, what is something you would tell someone getting into your industry? Like what is some type of advice you would tell someone?
Oh gosh, good question. You need a thick skin, 100%. But the biggest thing is like stick to what makes you you. I always remembered when I started in the event space, I'm a goofball. Like I will be the first one on the dance floor, and not from like a like seductive perspective, but like I'm doing like a stupid like the grocery cart, or like I just like to have fun. And I remember when I first started in the industry, people used to tell me like you have to be professional, and I'm like, I'm never not professional. Like I'm just a professional person, but I am a goofball and I like to have fun. Why can't I do both? And I remember one day my boss finally said to me, management had changed. It was now like a very good friend of mine that became my like boss, and to this day he's still one of my like favorite humans. And he would always push me to like think outside of the box and be goofy and be different, and like if you want to like do this crazy thing, do it. Like just go do what Lauren wants to do. And it was at that moment that my career really took off, because people would see me as the person that would do things different, and they were like, she's a little bit crazy, but we love it because it just works. And for so long I hid that side of me, and the second that I started to like lean into the fact that I am a little bit outside of the box and I do think of things that are a little bit unconventional and crazy, that I really started to soar. So I think people need to focus on actually like figure out who you are and just run with it. Like don't let anybody change that. Don't let anybody convince you that what you are or who you are is not going to work in the industry that you want to be in, because it will. You will find your people and they will love you, and you'll be something special.
And it's that being authentic, like being you, because it's hard to be someone else. Like you need to be yourself. And I agree with you on so many different levels, because there's things like even within my staff or my employees or even my family, I'm like, I am the same person, whether I'm with, well, the whole professional thing, I get what you're saying with that too.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know when we need to be professional, but like, I'm like, this is who I am here. This is who I am with my friends. And I think people generally respect you for that on a whole different level, right?
Oh yeah. I feel like if you're a different person at work and you're a different person at home, who is the real you and who is being gypped of that person that you really are? Also, does it not get exhausting trying to be two completely different people? Like I did it for years when I worked corporate. I remember like I would show up at work and I would be like, I am ready to like face the world. And then I would leave and I would be like this crazy funny person. And everyone in my personal life was like, oh my God, I love you so much. You're like great, blah, blah. And then everyone at work was like, she's kind of boring. And then I was like, no, I don't want to be that person. I want to be the fun, goofy one. And that's when your people find you. And there are people that don't appreciate me. And I'm like, that's totally fine. Just then do your own thing. Like, you don't need to come near me. You don't need to like be in my space. But the people that do appreciate me and respect me are my people. And I think we need to get over the fact that everyone's going to like you because they're just not.
I remember my dad telling me, he was like, if everyone was the same, the world would be a boring place. And 100%, like if everyone liked each other, like if everyone was the same, if we were all the same as each other, it'd be a pretty boring place, right? So
Totally. Yeah. I was at a training once with, do you know Darren Hardy?
I feel like I know it's ringing a bell.
He wrote the book, The Compound Effect. He was the editor of Success Magazine. He's just like a self-help like business guy. He was speaking at an event for us once, and he said, "If you're not pissing people off, you're not doing it right." And I was like, "Oh my God, like that is so right. If people don't hate you, you're not living your true life. Like there are going to be people that don't like you, and that you need to almost like strive towards that because it means you have boundaries. It means you're setting these expectations of people. It means that you're striving to be the best version of yourself. People are going to be offended by you, and that's a good thing. Like it's not a bad thing. If you live to make everyone happy, you're not going to be successful in it,
and you're not going to be happy either. Like I look at, like, I'm a small town girl and now living back in Bracebridge and in Muskoka, everyone knows each other. Like I go to the grocery store and it's like a town hall meeting, basically everyone knows each other. And I think that's a really hard thing to get your head wrapped around, whether you're in a big city or in a small town, because especially everyone's interconnected one way or another. And like I think people need to realize certain business decisions and personal decisions happen for a reason. Like put business aside and put personal aside. And I think sometimes when I make a business decision, also working with women, I think sometimes too, I'm like, okay, it's not emotionally driven, it's business decision. This is business driven. And sometimes it's hard to have that separation.
all the time. I notice it too sometimes. I'm like, I need to like step the emotion out of the business. We're dealing with a situation right now with a client where her responses are very emotionally driven. Mine are very business driven. And I'm seeing that like that clash. And I just keep approaching it from a very professional, like this is a very business decision. It is what it is. And the responses keep coming back emotional. And it's almost like I just want to shake her and be like, do you not see that this is just very business driven? But I think some people, women and men, don't have that ability to turn it off. They don't have that ability to say like, this is very business and this is very personal. I do. I can like in 2 seconds, like chew you a new one business wise and then be like, okay, what are we getting for lunch?
Yeah.
And I think more people need to be able to like differentiate, like you've pissed me off in business, but I still love you as a person, or vice versa. I still love you in business, but I never want to be your friend. Like I respect the crap out of you in business, but don't call me if you need something. And I think there needs to be that very clear line.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think with social media and stuff too, it's hard because like if you have someone on social media and then you see their personal life and you're trying to make conversation, there's just so many things. That topic, I feel like we could run off forever talking about the two difference, because you do feel like you're wearing two different hats, being an entrepreneur, and also within even the entrepreneur life, you're wearing how many different hats within your business, right? And I think of the topics we touched on, just talking about your business in general, like the amount of platforms and different businesses and models and business plans you go through, and all the different kind of the strategies too, right, of trying to see what's working in the systems. Now with the pandemic and everything too, have you really kind of dialed in on your systems and kind of reevaluated what's working and what isn't working?
It's funny you ask this. So in 2020, the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm going to get my systems and processes nailed down and they're going to be incredible. And then COVID was like, haha, sucker. So no, 2020 was like, I had systems and processes, but like my business changed so much. And then for 2021, I promised myself that every month I was going to focus on something new. And January was my systems and process month. So literally checking in with the team, like what's working, what's not working, why is there a gap here, why does this not work here, and really understanding what those like workflows are and like SOPs, and really figuring it out was like a super super big focus for January. So I'm literally in the middle of it right now, understanding what processes do work and what don't. But it is hard, and like every day you're like, well, I want to refine it even more, and you can continuously refine your processes, but at some point it just needs to be like, this is working for now, I need to pivot and look at other sides of the business so that we can one day have better processes. Because if I'm going to focus on processes the whole time, when am I focusing on sales? Like, when am I focusing on what the money drivers are? You have to like differentiate that. And that's what I noticed is working really well for our business.
That's amazing. And we were talking about that when I was interviewing Danielle. We were talking about, instead of having like this massive, like, I don't think anyone's saying 2021 is going to be my year, but like when you're like, this is going to be my overall goal, instead of dialing in and being like you said, this month, this is our main focus. And I think as entrepreneurs, and even in life, like whether it's a fitness goal you're reaching or you're trying to work on your relationship or something, I feel like it's one of those things where having actionable goals and like really making it realistic too.
Yeah. And communicating it. Like my team knows, I've said to them, in the month of January, you have full access to me. If you need to message me at Friday, even though I take Fridays off, I will answer your message because I understand I have set the expectation that for January, we are refining, we are changing, we are making sure everybody is so, so, so comfortable. But February 1st, I'm pivoting and I'm going to be focusing more on marketing and sales. So you get me like for 3 hours a week, and you just need to be okay with that. And communicating that to the team so that they don't feel frustrated, and they don't feel like you're not supporting them. Absolutely. That's one thing that I never had in my corporate world, was my boss telling me when I had access to them. So then I would get frustrated. I have a question. When can I come to you? You can come to me Mondays. Like we have team meetings every Monday. Come to me on Mondays with any question that you have. I will answer it. I will work you through it. I will support you. But for the rest of the week, guys, I don't really have capacity. I did that this week. We went into launch for our new course, and I said to them, hey guys, I don't have capacity to get back to you until Thursday. So if it's urgent, try and work it out as a team. If not, please leave the question until Thursday. Otherwise, I'm going to feel stressed. And like, I'm annoyed that my team is coming to me 50 times a day, but it's because I haven't set that expectation.
Yeah.
Whereas in February, they know I'm like ramping it up in sales. So they know they need to be dialed in on their systems and processes so that they can thrive and they can feel really empowered in their role and not like they need to come to me for everything.
I think as being a leader too is having people know what your goal is, like having those open conversations and saying, this is where I want to take the business. Are you along for the ride? Because I look at some of the businesses I worked for, I think it was just a day in and day out job. Like they had no goal or no vision of where they wanted to take the business. And I think being an employee, contract worker, any of the above, basically, you've got to see that vision and where this business is going to take you. Because if you're in for the long haul, you want to see where the heck you're going.
Totally. And you want to feel like you're empowered to be involved in that. Like I've said to all the girls that work for me, I'm like, if you want to work for us full time, let's get you there. I'm not asking you to come into my business and for the next 5 years to be staying in the role that you're in. I don't want that for you. I want you to grow. I want you to have people working under you. Like I want to challenge these skills and have you get there. And if I don't communicate that with them, they're probably thinking, what's Lauren's vision for me? Sure, she wants to grow this to a multi-6-figure $1 million business, but where do I sit with that? How do I become included in that? Like I have fully said publicly, like Nicole will run my business one day. I just know it. She will be the person that runs my business, and I will just be like, hey, like, am I still relevant? Because I have communicated this to her publicly, privately. Everyone knows that like I want my team full-time running this business for me, not for me, with me. Like I want them empowered. And I think that's such a cool thing to give them. I mean, at least that's what I hope they feel the same way. But to give them that communication and that like foresight of like, okay, right now we are pivoting. Right now it's weird. We don't know what's going on in the business, but here's what I'm working towards. I want you in that VP role. I want you in that CEO role one day. How are we going to get there? None of us really know, but we're going to do it together.
Well, and I think that togetherness is like, imagine them just trying to figure it out and do it on their own. That's the whole point of like having that community feel and having each other's back throughout the entire process.
100%. And then it also goes back to like the personal side of things. Like life happens. And I say to my team, like life is going to happen. You are a human first and your family comes first. So if we're working towards this big goal, and let's say like next month we have a goal to hit 6 figures in 1 month, and then something happens personally, you need to communicate that with me so that I can like give you that space and I can step in as the business owner, or someone from the team can step in. Like having that open communication with the team, I think is like the number one thing that any boss, quote unquote, I hate the word boss, needs to focus on for their business. Is communication is key no matter what.
Yeah, I feel like every single thing that you've touched on with like being a leader and having those kind of, I don't want to say raw conversations, but the real life conversations that entrepreneurs or business owners aren't having with their employees. And then they're like, oh, why did they leave? Or why did this happen? Well, sometimes when you actually sit back and listen to somebody instead of just giving them tasks and to-dos and everything else, and actually sit, like, how is it? I always say to Carly, one of the girls that works for me, I said, she has the never-ending to-do list, but she wouldn't have it any other way. She loves it. And that for some of my other girls, I know that forever and never-ending to-do list would not be something I would put on them. Yeah. And knowing all the different personalities and knowing how people work in their systems. And I also find with some of my staff too, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I know what day they're more productive on, or I know what day. It's so funny how you're like, Monday's your team call. We do the same thing. Fridays I technically have off, which I almost don't like that, saying I'm off on Fridays, because I'm not really off. I'm just like not on location, or I'm like kind of working from home, which is every day now, but doing more admin business, working in the business or working on the business instead of in the business. But I find it's making systems that work. And I also think with having employees, they're the ones who are making, I always say they're like the captain of the ship. They're making it move. They're the ones, I wouldn't be able to run a ship if it wasn't for all of them.
Yeah, 100%. One of the girls on my team messaged me last night at like 7:00, and she's like, hey, if you have time for a quick call, I'd really appreciate it. Like nothing's urgent, but like I'd love to chat. And it hit me. I went through so many emotions when I got that text message. I was like, she's gonna quit. And then I was like, well, no, she feels comfortable enough to come to me, and there's obviously something on her mind. I would, like I've said this before, like I feel so honored that she came to me, and literally she just vented about like feeling like she was behind and she felt like she was letting me down. And I was just like, oh my God, I never felt like I could go to a boss with that. So the fact that she feels comfortable to come to me, which I know is not how a lot of entrepreneurs think. They're like, if it's outside of 9 to 5, don't call me. But that's not the that's not the environment that I want to cultivate for my team. If they are literally having like, if it's work related, I mean, like if you're messaging me at 10 o'clock at night because like you got into a fight with your boyfriend, maybe we need to set some boundaries. Yeah. But work related, come to me. I want to be able to walk you through these moments. I understand you're fresh out of school and you're young and you're trying to navigate all of these feelings. And I did not have someone I could go to in the workplace when I was going through that. So I love that I can be that, because if we need to understand, and same thing with you, with having that younger staff, they're not going to work for us forever. They are going to grow up and flourish and either start their own business or go work corporate or whatever they're going to do. We want to set them up as good people. So if we don't set that foundation for them, then they're going to be lost and they're not going to understand. They're going to have the experience we had where you work corporate and you're just like hustling and you don't have that support. And I don't want that for my staff. So it's been really cool to see that they actually feel comfortable coming to me being like, I feel like I'm letting you down. And then like letting me talk them off the ledge. There has been conversations where I'm like, you're not letting me down, but like, maybe we can step it up here a little bit and like, blah, 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 like whatever it is. And they're like, oh, I feel so much better. Yeah. I feel better knowing where your head's at.
Thank you so much, Lauren, so much for jumping on here. I think people are going to really see whether they're hiring staff. Like I look at, you had just really started with your first staff member not that long ago during basically a pandemic at the beginning stages. Yeah.
We went from last February, I was me and I had hired Nicole, and now we're a team of 6. And it's like so crazy to see within 12 months what can change in your business. And I'm like, someone said to me the other day, I forget it, I think it was like, or actually it wasn't the other day, I was like flirting with a guy, like on Hinge, like this whole dating thing. And he's like, holy shit, like you pay for like 6 salaries. And I was like, well, not full time. But yeah, it's like, it almost takes your like not your business to the next level, but your like stress level. You're like, oh my God, I have so many more people. And you're just like, I love it though. I thrive on it. But it is cool to see how other people react to it. Like when they find out you have a team, they're like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
it's kind of sad because you don't want people to define you by that either. But it's like, yeah, I'm a boss babe. Like I am a boss. Like I know you hate that word, but it's kind of like you can say it in a different term and mean it in a different way. And on that note, like where can people find you on social media? What platforms do you want people to find you on?
Probably just my Instagram. It's just at Modern Collective with an underscore at the bottom or at the end. And that will like link out to the Toronto Business Babes and Modern Travel and kind of everything else I'm up to right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Lauren. It was awesome to have you on, and I'll